Eliminating a monthly payroll deduction using 12037, you help AFA continue to fight for your family. So when you complete your CFC form, remember, AFA's number is 12037. And thank you for your help.
This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News, I'm Robert Thornton. The U.S. Supreme Court will hear arguments tomorrow in the case known as Trump v. Anderson. At issue is whether the Colorado Supreme Court erred in ordering former President Donald Trump excluded from the 2024 presidential primary ballot because of insurrection on January 6th. Salem radio host Jeff Hunt told AFN that Colorado has a track record of sending unconstitutional cases to the Supreme Court.
Now the effort to keep Trump off the ballot, I think this is direct election interference, primarily by Democrats in the state of Colorado.
A ruling is expected in the next few weeks. The Colorado primary is in early March. The U.S. says they've killed an Iranian proxy group leader in Iraq. Here's Fox's Jennifer Griffin.
We have confirmed with two senior U.S. defense officials that it was a U.S. drone that took out a senior leader of the Kateb Hezbollah group in eastern Baghdad. It was a Hellfire missile that was fired on an SUV, we're told, where this leader was traveling in eastern Baghdad. There were several other people in the car, possibly members of Kateb Hezbollah, we're told. This is a group that, of course, the U.S. military has been tracking.
Iranian proxies have regularly attacked U.S. forces and ships passing through the Middle East since the October 7th terrorist attacks on Israel. Joel Rosenberg of All Israel News appeared on the Jenna Ellis in the Morning program to talk about a trip into the Gaza Strip he took with some journalists. They were given access to a maze of tunnels by an IDF brigadier general.
They had just discovered it. They had just cleared it with intense fighting down in that maze of tunnels. And what was astonishing, Jenna, was that we saw two main things. First, we saw the underground bunker where senior Hamas officials were living, working, and directing the war against Israel.
He said they were taken into some cages where Israeli hostages were previously held. The general told the journalists they were standing in the most important tunnels found thus far.
It's significant because it shows just how much the IDF is winning. They now are saying that 75% of every Hamas terrorist, the whole Hamas terror army, 75% has now been either killed, severely wounded and taken off the battlefield, or captured.
He went on to say the places to run are getting fewer and fewer for Hamas leadership. A retired naval officer and military analyst says he is disappointed that the Navy has lowered its standards amid continued recruiting woes. Here's AFN's Chad Groening with more.
The Navy missed its recruiting goal by 6,000 sailors in 2023, so it has decided to lower the bar for enlistment by no longer requiring a high school diploma or GED. The Navy Chief of Personnel, Vice Admiral Rick Cheeseman, says they get thousands of people into recruiting stations every year that want to join the Navy, but do not meet the education requirement. The new plan allows recruits to enlist as long as they score 50 or above out of 99 on the qualification test. Retired Navy Commander Kirk Lippold commanded the USS Cole when it was attacked by terrorists in 2000. He's absolutely disappointed that the Secretary of Navy chose to do this.
Because the United States Navy has always prided itself on being the most technically advanced service. The difference between the Navy and all the other services is that when you are deployed on a ship, you cannot just know your job. You have to know your job and at least 1 to 2 levels above your job.
And Lippold says there are several negative consequences when you lower standards.
Lowering these standards result in lower morale, more disciplinary problems. So consequently, you end up adversely impacting the combat effectiveness of ships, and at the end, your retention actually goes down. And at a time in the world when we are being challenged in ways that I don't think the American people can comprehend yet, the last thing we need to do is lower the standard, when in fact we should be raising it.
I'm Chad Groening.
For American Family News, I'm Robert Thornton.
When we talk about politics, we tend to, as Christians, kind of set aside our faith and say, well, in the political arena, I identify more as a Republican or a Democrat or a conservative versus a liberal. The biblical worldview genuinely is the foundation and the basis for everything that we do, including our involvement in and analyzing civil government.
Jenna Ellis in the morning, weekdays at 7 Central on American Family Radio.
Darkness is not an affirmative force. It simply reoccupies the space vacated by the light.
This is the Hamilton Corner on American Family Radio.
It should be uncomfortable for a believer to live as a hypocrite.
Delivering people out of the bondage of mainstream media and the philosophies of this world.
God has called you and me to be his ambassadors, even in this dark moment. Let's not miss our moment.
And now, the Hamilton Corner.
Should the U.S. government, should cities, should states, organizations, individual taxpayers, should we pay reparations for slavery in America? And what about reparations for other injustices that we perceive to have happened throughout history? Hi, Alex McFarland here. Welcome to a special edition of the Hamilton Corner. I'm very honored to be sitting in for attorney, pastor, cultural analyst, and broadcaster Abe Hamilton III. Abe is general counsel for the American Family Association. And if you recognize my voice, it's probably because of a show called Exploring the Word. I have the privilege 5 days a week live, Monday through Friday, 4 to 5 p.m. Eastern Time, to be on Exploring the Word, and then frequently sit in for Abe Hamilton. And it's always a great honor because on the Hamilton Corner, we get to talk about a lot of issues of the day. And it's interesting, we've got a guest, Nina May. She's a writer, producer, and director of Renaissance Women's Productions, and she is also a voice and a very informed voice on the subject of reparations. And I just literally last week was speaking at an American university, and a number of students, Christian students, really took me to task over the fact that during the Q&A I had mentioned that I don't believe that reparations for slavery is just, and we had a spirited and I hope respectful discussion, but really to weigh in on this topic because it is a very relevant topic and give us some insight is Nina May. And first of all, I know we've tried to schedule radio a time or two, and we've got it together today, and so I'm very excited to speak with you, Nina, and thank you for being on the American Family Radio Network.
Well, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yes. So give us a little bit of your background in addition to being a subject matter expert on this topic. Tell us about your work.
Well, I started in publishing and then moved to radio and then to TV and then movies and documentaries, actually documentaries and then movies. So we're now doing feature-length movies. But during the documentary period of time, we did Emancipation, Revelation, Revolution, which is a documentary about the history of the civil rights movement in America, the role that both parties have played in it, and what happens to conservative blacks who leave the liberal plantation and embrace the party of Lincoln. Because a lot of people don't realize that the Republican Party was founded as an abolitionist party. There were only 9 planks in their platform, their very first platform, and 6 of them dealt with emancipation, equal rights, voting rights, civil rights, and Lincoln was the very first Republican president ever elected. They don't teach that in school. In fact, a lot of people lie and say that he was a Democrat, but he was the great emancipator. And I say, I'm going to go straight to the heart of it. If anyone should pay reparations, it should be the Democrat Party, because the Democrat Party literally left the states that were part of it, left the United States of America. They created their own country, the Confederacy, that had its own flag, its own president, its own currency, its own constitution. And their whole reason for doing this, the only reason, was to keep slavery alive, because the unions were starting to shut it down. And the people were voting. They said, we don't want slavery anymore. We want to end slavery. But it was the Democrats that kept it alive. So all those people that, even if you're affiliated with, or not affiliated with, but you're the offspring of someone that really was a slave, because there's not a single person alive today that was a slave 150 years ago or owned a slave
Right.
150 years ago. So you got to have damages first. You got to prove what your damages are. You can't just file a lawsuit and say, oh, I think I deserve this money, give it to me. So well, show me what your damages are. What's your cause of action that you feel that we should have a lawsuit that would order this to happen. But I say bring it on. If that's a discussion we're going to have, we've got to figure out who caused the problem. And not only did they lose the war and we reunited the United States, they then formed this group called the KKK. It's the terrorist arm of the Democrat Party. They're proud about the terrorist arm of the Democrat Party. Joe Biden, our president, actually spoke at the funeral of a Grand Kleagle for the KKK. That was Senator Robert Byrd. He was vice president at that time. So when a lot of people say, oh, well, that was yesterday, this is today, things have changed, things are different. No, they actually haven't. And they still do the same thing to conservative blacks that they've always done. That's try and silence them. They sick the hounds of derision on them. They marginalize them. They mock them. And these are whites doing this to blacks. So there's nothing new under the sun with the Democrat Party. They're still the party of oppression. They're still the party that tries to destroy individual liberties. And they're succeeding. But we're pushing back. And we're saying, you know what? If you're black, you need to reclaim your party. Your party is the Republican Party. The Democrats hate you and want to keep you on their plantation. And just try it. Just try and get off that plantation. Identify yourself as a Republican. Say you're conservative. Oh, go all the way and say MAGA. Oh, my gosh, their heads will explode. But
don't you think, Nina, don't you think there's a change coming, though, that more and more, I talk with more and more black voters that, I mean, they get it, and the decades of stranglehold that the Democrat Party has had on the black voters, don't you think that is breaking, at least to a degree?
Oh, I think it is, definitely, and especially with this immigration issue. They're seeing all these people pouring over the border. They're getting all the goodies. They're getting all the handouts, the credit cards, the cell phones, and our poor brothers and sisters are U.S. citizens of all colors that are struggling day to day to put food on the table. They're just sitting there watching this happen and going, well, what the heck? Why is this happening? How could this possibly be happening in America? And we've always been a country of immigration. No one doubts that. But it's the illegal immigration and what they're doing to the cities. And seeing that video of those illegals kicking those two policemen in the head and then flipping the country off, that's what we're letting in to the southern border. And I'm thinking that the Democrats are probably going to say, the black Democrats especially, are going to say, wait a second, why aren't the Democrats, my party, why aren't they closing the border? Because these people are moving into my inner city, fiefdoms, and they're going to be taking my jobs. They're going to be, put up in the housing that we should have. So I'm really hoping. I tell you what, a turnaround for me was, and I hope that it really is real. Remember when Joe Biden said to Charlemagne Lagarde, he said, whatever how you say his name, he said, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black. And it was such a pejorative. You ain't black. Like, no, I don't think he talks like that. You could say you aren't black, but to say that very, very racially loaded statement and do it in a condescending way, like you'll only understand me if I speak down to you. And I was kind of shocked that he didn't.
Well, Hillary Clinton did the same
thing.
thing.
You know what? I vote for who I'm going to vote for. But the man just has to. But I'm hearing him now come out, and I think the blinders have come off him, and hopefully a lot of other blacks that are finally getting off that liberal plantation.
Well, do you remember Hillary Clinton when she was a candidate back in 2015? I believe it was 2015.
I ain't know why he's tired. And seriously, how condescending
Oh, it is
that?
cringeworthy. Cringeworthy. It is. A book that I reference often because it was just really such an epiphany for me, but I read probably 20 years ago Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s 1963 Pulitzer Prize-winning book, Why We Can't Wait, which was, really his whole foundation of the civil rights movement. And for one thing, I would urge people to read that. It's steeped in Christianity. It's incredibly brilliantly reasoned. He quotes Augustine, Aquinas, but there's a line in the book, and I have read every page of that book probably a dozen times, and Dr. King says that it would be a disaster if and this was his term, the Negro vote, Dr. King said, if the Negro vote were in the hip pocket of one political party. And he talked about voting for principles, not party. But that's really, to a degree, what's happened, isn't it?
Oh, it absolutely is. And remember, Johnson famously said, by him signing the Civil Rights Act, these blanks, the N-word, are going to be in our back pocket for decades. And so they basically knew they would do this. But think about the Civil Rights Act. A lot of people don't really understand this. That's already in the Constitution. We had the 13th Amendment to abolish slavery. The 14th Amendment was for equal rights, civil rights, which that's what they claim the Civil Rights Bill was all about. And the 15th Amendment was the right to vote. So why do we need this Voting Rights Act when the 13th, 14th, the 15th Amendment already covers that? And I'll tell you why. Because the Democrats were not abiding by the laws of you've lost the war. There's going to be reparations now for a few people. People are going to get farms that they didn't own. And so there was instant reparations with the whole, what do they call that? When they, not redistribution. Oh, I can't think of the word. Right after the Civil War, Reconstruction, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Reconstruction.
With Reconstruction. But a lot of people don't realize that Johnson, the vice president, is now the president, was a Democrat. He supported the Confederacy. And in those days, the president and the vice president did not slate together. They ran their own races. So when he's now president, they come back in. He's going, well, I don't want the union to get this and get that. And so they started overturning a lot of the rules that the Republicans had put in place in Congress. And do you know that the first 23 black Republicans in Congress were all blacks? We're all Republican. I'm sorry, we're all Republican. And it wasn't for 100 years till the Democrats had a black in Congress, and that was Barbara Jordan. So, again, go back to reparations. The Jim Crow laws. The Jim Crow laws were established by the Democrats to keep black Republicans from voting, because every single black person approaching the poll, they knew they were going to vote Republican. So they said, okay, you can vote if you can count how many, or tell me how many jelly beans are in this jar, or if you can recite Shakespeare backwards, or whatever it was, whatever crazy thing they said. Those were Jim Crow laws established by the Democrats to keep black Republicans from voting. It wasn't the whites keeping blacks from voting. How stupid is that? You want every vote you can get. So it wasn't white versus black. It was right versus wrong. And the historians, again, they always get that one wrong. They get the Three-Fifths Clause wrong. They get the Southern Strategy wrong. I'm not saying they get it wrong. I'm actually saying they're doing it on purpose because they need to tweak history in order to benefit them.
Well, then as now, Democrats can't, fight fairly, because their policies are destructive. Their leaders are not good leaders. They're dishonest. And so whether it's voter fraud or whether it's voter intimidation, the liberal Democrats, they have to cheat, because on a level playing field, they don't win. But let me ask you this. As far as reparations for slavery, how much traction does this idea have at this point, Nina?
I don't think it has any at all, because everyone asks the question, is there anyone alive today that was a slave? Is there anyone alive today that was a slave owner? And then what about all the people that just came from Africa like last week? They're black. It's all about skin color. And what it really is, it's a plan to redistribute wealth. That's the whole thing, and it's a plan to divide the races, which has always been the goal of the Democrat Party. They are not happy when everybody's getting along. They're just not happy. We all had hope that when Obama was elected, like, finally we can get past all this racist stuff. Well, he stoked the fire. He kept throwing dry wood on it. And we're going, wait, I thought we were supposed to be getting along now. So I think he set the whole thing back by literally a couple of decades, because we did not have the kind of horrible racism that we're seeing right now in our country. And I think they're delighted by this. It delights them to see this.
We've got a brief break. We're talking with Nina May about a number of issues. We'll come back after this brief break. But Nina, is there a website you would like to direct people to learn more about your work and these issues?
Yeah, go to errvideo.com, and you can find the documentary there, Emancipation, Revolution, and the sequel, which is called Reparations, Who Should Pay. And then there are several other smaller ones that we did just, for like addressing critical race theory, addressing what BLM was doing, that type of thing. So you can do.
We'll be back after this. Stay tuned. We're back after this.
Like it or not, you and I step onto the battlefield every day of our life.
Pastor Joseph Parker.
We're dealing with spiritual warfare at home, on the job, at school, in the workplace, in the grocery store. Spiritual warfare is all around us. That's why as believers we're wise to speak words of faith everywhere we go. We're wise to speak daily. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Speaking the whole psalm. Why? Because the whole psalm is a weapon. Speaking the words of that psalm are wise because you're standing on the promises in that psalm. Finding promises in God's word and speaking them over your life are so important. The Bible is a book full of weapons. It's an arsenal of weapons, but they're weapons to be put to use on a daily basis. How do we do that? Largely with our tongues, with our mouths. We speak the words of God.
Find encouraging blogs from Pastor Joseph at afa.net/The Stand.
Pastor Robert Jeffress.
Jesus said, "You are the salt of the earth. You are the light of the world." Imagine a giant dam that is in danger of collapsing, crumbling, and there's a village below filled with people who are in danger of being flooded. And a group of concerned townspeople go up and they push up against that dam. Then they know ultimately their effort is futile. Ultimately that dam is going to burst. And that's really what we Christians are trying to do. We're not going to save this culture. We're not going to prevent its ultimate collapse, but we're to push back against evil for as long as we can to give people an opportunity to hear the life-changing gospel of Jesus Christ. We're to be a preservative, pushing back against evil, but at the same time, we're to be sharing the light of Jesus Christ. And I believe we're to get involved and not get in our spiritual silos and wait for the end to come.
A reminder from American Family Radio.
Hi, this is Steve Tiber with 8 Days of Hope. Over the last 19 years, we have traveled the country to love and serve the brokenhearted by helping them rebuild their homes after natural disasters. Today, we're ready and excited to announce 8 Days of Hope 20 is happening March 9th to March 16th in Amory, Mississippi. Last year in March, Amory saw an EF3 tornado come through the town and damage thousands of homes, and there was even loss of life. And now we as the body of Christ get a chance to serve this community again through March 9th through March 16th. You're invited. It's free. We provide food and lodging, and there's something for everyone. Can you bring your family? Yes, you can. During the outreach, we're also going to have a special night of worship with Darren Mulligan from We Are Messengers, Ben Fuller, and Jonathan Traller at a free concert for the volunteers and the families alike. Please join us. All the information is on our website, 8daysofhope.com. That's 8daysofhope.com.
Shining light into the darkness. This is the Hamilton Corner on American Family Radio.
Welcome back to the program. Alex McFarland here. Very honored to be sitting in for Abe Hamilton III. We're talking with documentary film producer, writer, researcher Nina May. There's so many issues, and folks, we want you to be informed on these things, not only about like the idea of reparations, but things like critical theory, CRT, critical race theory, a term you may have heard in the news in recent weeks. I just wrote an editorial about it, Christian nationalism. Now, later on in the program, we're going to be talking about censorship on Amazon and elsewhere. But Nina, thanks for being with us. And, as you alluded to in the previous segment, regarding reparations for slavery, okay, categorically, slavery is wrong. The enslavement of fellow human beings is wrong. We reject slavery, and we thank God for the emancipation of the slaves, the abolitionist movement, civil rights legislation. But like you said, nobody alive today was a slave in colonial America. Nobody alive today has owned slaves in colonial America. From a legal standpoint, appropriate recompense for actions, it's just not there.
Right, and you don't have standing for someone else's illegality. I mean, for some, if someone comes in and they say, "Hey, that person punched me in the face, it's assault," you say, "Okay, yes, absolutely, that's assault." But I can't come in and say, "Well, I'm going to take her assault and I'm going to claim that person assaulted me, and they're going to be thrown in jail not because he assaulted them, but I'm claiming they assaulted me." You go, "Wait, you don't have standing. You weren't the one punched in the face. You can claim it hurt you to see it happen, but that's the point now. If there's not one person alive who was hurt by slavery, then how do they have the right to bring a trial or to bring a case on this situation? You can't. You just can't do it." But I do think that what's going to happen, and I've had several, and it's actually very funny, several of my conservative black friends say, "Hey, if this passes in California, I'm on the first flight out there, and I'm going to have my hand out with everybody else. If it means that we're going to totally bankrupt that state, fine, let's just do it." And that's what's going to happen. You're going to have people from all over the world coming with their hand out and saying, "Hey, listen, I'm, 10th generation Nigerian African, never been to America before in my life, but I hear you got this really cool handout." I mean, how are they going to control it? How are they going to control it? And I'm really hoping that there are at least a couple of smart people in California that can deal with this issue and push back on it. But again, the best pushback is to say, if you want it, tack the bill on the door of the DNC, because they were the ones that set this whole thing up. And they were the ones that want to keep you on a plantation, and they want to destroy the country. I mean, there's the same people. Again, they left the country. They started their own country. They've never really liked America since. So, just remind people of what the truth is, remind people of what the history is, and, hopefully people will wake up and start thinking for themselves and speaking for themselves.
Speak to the listeners, if you would, about the importance of understanding, CRT is one ideological presence on the horizon, but we really are, in terms of America, that was founded belief in inalienable rights, just accountability before the law, just protection, equal protection. Help us understand, Nina, that we are absolutely in a philosophical battle, and what's up for grabs is the future of our country and all of our liberties in the process.
Oh, yeah, we're seeing a horrible weaponization of our judicial system. And the thing that they don't seem to understand, all these Democrats that are in charge now, they're the DAs, they're the judges, they're, Supreme Court, whatever they are, whatever the position is, that could switch tomorrow. So say the Republicans get in and do what the Democrats are doing, which they would never do, but let's just say they did. The left would be screaming and yelling. They'd be wanting to impeach every single judge in this country. They'd want to throw them all in jail. They'd want to strip them of their law degrees and on and on and on, because they know what they're doing is wrong. But they're getting away with doing it because the Republicans are weak. The Republicans never have a spine when it comes to anything, any kind of pushback. I mean, look how they're doing this thing with the border situation. And it's being tied to Ukraine, for goodness sakes. What's that all about other than money laundering? I mean, seriously, when you have someone like Schumer desperate to have Ukraine part of it, look at his bank account, follow the money, always follow the money. These people go in with nothing into the Senate, into the House, and they come out multi-gazillionaires. Where did they get the money from? Look at Joe Biden setting his son up in his the SOB statement that he did. If you don't fire this guy in 8 hours when I'm about to leave here, then SOB, you're not going to get that money, the $8 billion, whatever it is. Then, so SOB, he did it. And the guys were fired. Well, who was that guy? That was the guy that was looking into the irregularities that Hunter was doing. So is nobody aware of this? Is no one seeing this? And where are Republicans to do something about it? And they let him come to the Capitol, do a little press conference, and basically flip the bird to Congress. And what did Congress do? Nothing. And who's running Congress? The Republicans. So, I hate to speak ill of people that I know, but I'm not speaking ill of them. I'm just speaking ill of the the way people are doing things, and they're not doing it in a very smart way, and people are being hurt by it. They're just
we need convictions and courage, and one of the things that I just and people listening, maybe you might feel led to run for office. We need citizens that are conservative, constitutionalist, and I would add Christian, but that understand the foundation of our country. Yes, it is a Judeo-Christian representative republic, but that when Jefferson used the term in the Declaration, self-evident truth, in other words, undeniable moral truth, the law of God written on every heart. Sometimes it's also called natural law. Nina, I feel like there are so many people in the halls of government that they don't really understand the workings of our constitutional republic, nor the philosophical foundations of it.
Yeah, no, and you've got sort of an entrenched group. I've been on Capitol Hill, I had my office on Capitol Hill for years, and I had about 150 congressmen as my clients. We were putting together their postal patrons, which is their newsletter that goes back to their constituents. And when we were there, the congressmen actually were involved, and they actually told the staff what to do, and the staff did what the congressman told them. Now, the congressmen are like at the mercy of their staff, and these staff just turn over. They go from one office to the next office. They're entrenched in every way you can imagine. The Congress comes and goes, and you keep wondering, who's running this country? Who are these unelected people that are making these decisions that are impacting our lives? And I think there needs to be a deep dive into that. And, they keep talking about increasing the FBI. I say, no, we actually should shut the FBI down and turn that big building, beautiful big building, into a bunch of condos, because they're trampling on people's rights.
Do you have any hope, while we're talking about abolishing agencies that are well past their usefulness, what about ending the Department of Education? I mean,
absolutely.
Why would education be federalized? Shouldn't that be state and localities?
Local. That was one of the big mistakes that Reagan made. But we need to follow the model of this guy Xavier Milei down in Argentina. Afuera. Like, get him out of there. And he's basically cut the cabinet in half, went from 18 to 9 cabinet members. And you're thinking, that's the way to do it. Because these people, it's just like the Declaration of Independence, when we said King George has sent his minions to eat out our substance. And that's exactly what the Democrats and the liberals are doing today. They're eating out our substance and turning us all into slaves of the state. And now's the time to push back when you actually have a little bit of liberty to do it.
So do you think Trump will be on the ballots of all 50 states come November?
I hope he is. But if he isn't, I think the people will be really ticked, and they'll speak out. And I think people that ordinarily might not vote for him are going to say, you know what, I'm writing his name in. I'm not voting for any of these other people. I'm just going to write his name in. And they could totally impact the entire country if they do that. These guys have already overplayed their hand with all these indictments that have come down. It's so flimsy and so incredibly transparent. And everyone's doing even 20 times worse than he is, and nothing's happening to them. Nothing. Hunter Biden's a perfect example. Or Joe Biden having, records as a vice president, having, records that he doesn't have the right to in his garage as he's parking his car. The door's wide open. Anyone could walk in and see it. So people are seeing a duplicity in the way the Justice Department is, meting out what's right and what's wrong, the judgments against people. And it's a game that they're playing right now, and we need to get on top of it because it could destroy this nation.
Well, this is very enlightening, Nina, to speak with you. Any final assignment for us? Any website you'd like to point us to?
Go to errvideo.com, and I would start with the Reparations Who Should Pay. It's only about 20 minutes. But and it's got a really good narration to it. It lays out all the facts of why not, Great interviews with some wonderful conservative black leaders. And then ERR is 90 minutes, and it does a deeper dive into the history of all of this. But it's very, very educational. And Republicans need to watch it because you need to be empowered that you are the party and still are the party of liberty. And the other guys are the party of oppression. It's that simple. So
Yeah. Wow.
we need to get back into leadership positions for sure.
Well, thank you for your research. Thank you for your courageous voice. And I look forward to when we can talk again. Hi, folks. Alex McFarland here. This is the Hamilton Corner on the American Family Radio Network. And I'm going to change gears and queue up another guest that I want you to meet. This is Claton Butcher. And I'll just share this by telling you about a pretty firm email I got last Friday. Now look, folks, a couple of months ago, it was Christmas, right? And all through Christmas on Facebook and social media, I was posting things about the coming of Jesus. Nothing controversial. I was putting up messages about, Christmas, the birth of Jesus. In January, I was posting things about it's a new year, fresh start, give your life to Christ, and believe God for great things. If anything, over the last, say, 60, 90 days, my Facebook posts have been as innocuous as you could imagine. God loves you. Christ has a plan for your life. I get this email Friday from Meta, Facebook. Sternly, it says, I've been reported for hate speech, and my entire account and everything I've posted is under review. Oh, I'm shaking in my boots, and they may have to suspend my account unless the hate speech stops. Well, I work for Jesus, and, if I'm going to post John 3:16 and for God to love the world, I'm going to do it. But we're living in a time where the Christian voice, the Christian viewpoint, there is attempts for it to be censored. My goodness, it's not Christians calling for censorship, but the left. And so Claton Butcher is the president of Crosscurrent Digital, and we're going to talk a little bit about just the right to free expression and the free exchange of ideas, something that the woke left just doesn't like. Claton, thanks for holding, and welcome to the American Family Radio Network.
No problem. I'll hold all day to listen to people like Nina.
Exactly.
She was excellent.
Indeed. So, censorship of the Christian and or conservative viewpoints, how much of a reality is this?
It's definitely there, and we get people that push back to us saying, well, censorship doesn't happen, and I can say, well, actually, yes, it does. We had 3 years ago, in 2 weeks it'll be 3 years, 3 years ago that Amazon censored one of our audiobooks from our audiobook publishing company, Black Hills Audiobooks. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the book called When Harry Became Sally by Ryan T. Anderson.
Yes. In fact, I've interviewed Ryan Anderson, but yes, I'm familiar with that.
So we published, my wife and I, published the audiobook for that book. And so 3 years ago, Amazon, coincidentally, I say as sarcastically as possible, just a couple days before the so-called Equality Act was put before the House floor to be argued, it disappeared. Both the audiobook, the ebook, the print book, new, used from every seller on Amazon, gone, totally gone. Did it completely under the radar. Did not mention it did not notify the author, the print publisher.
Just scrubbed.
The audio publisher. Just completely scrubbed. Yep, exactly. Just gone as if it never existed.
So what was your reaction?
Obviously experienced that firsthand. Well, initially we had no idea what to expect. We had no idea didn't realize or didn't know what was going on, why they pulled it. Didn't put it together until a little bit later. When the Equality Act was put forth, but we're fully self-employed at this point, my wife and I, and we had just released or were about to release a number of books, including Senator Josh Hawley's Tyranny of Big Tech, another book called The Dictatorship of Woke Capital by Stephen Sokop, and a number of other books that talked about this. And then in our Two Words Publishing, our Christian audiobook brand, we had a number of books that talked about this as well. So we had no idea what was going to happen. How can they pull this book and let Tyranny of Big Tech, Dictatorship of Woke Capital stand? How can they
hold that thought. Forgive me. We've got a brief break. We're going to come back more with Claton Butcher of Crosscurrent Digital. Stay tuned.
Forget about Facebook.
The last 10 days we've been banned twice, and is unbanning a word?
They put us under the ban. Christians and conservatives don't need you, YouTube.
Banned one day, banned again.
AFR programs are now live streaming on the AFA streaming app. Now you can get shows like today's issues straight from the source.
Put back on the next.
Just say unbanned.
Unbanned.
Just search AFA streaming or visit streaming.afa.net to sign up.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jessica Peck, host of the Dr. Nurse Mama Show, the home of happy parents and healthy teens on AFR.net. I serve as your expert guide to engage, equip, encourage, and empower you to navigate life's toughest issues with your teens. We explore health impacts and home strategies to create a safe space in an unsafe world. The Dr. Nurse Mama Show on AFR.net.
Engaging the Lost. This is David Wheaton, host of The Christian Worldview. Popular pastor Alistair Begg is facing a backlash after counseling a grandmother to attend her granddaughter's transgender wedding and buy the couple a gift. What's the problem? Because to attend is to participate in a covenant ceremony that rejects God's design for marriage and celebrates a depraved relationship. The Bible says, as Jesus was reclining at the table in the house of Matthew, behold, many tax collectors and sinners came and were dining with Jesus and his disciples. A meal where sinners came to dine with Jesus is not comparable to an inherently sinful ceremony which Christians should avoid. Hear a most recent program about this at thechristianworldview.org. This weekend, George Barna joins us to discuss raising spiritual champions.
Listen to The Christian Worldview with David Wheaton, Saturday mornings at 8 Central on American Family Radio.
This is Abraham Hamilton III with AFR, and we're sending Bibles. Here's Michael with Bible League International.
Abe, what if you were a new believer, eager to grow in your faith, but you had no Bible? You'd say, well, I'd go to a Christian bookstore, have a company ship me one. Well, what if those weren't options? You know, that's the way it is for literally millions of Bibleless believers in the regions of Asia, Africa, the Middle East, and Latin America. They've been denied God's Word, but oh, the joy that comes when they finally receive a Bible.
When I got the Bible, I really love to read. And because of those reading, that God is really blessing my heart.
AFR listening family, you've been incredibly kind to bless 18,000 Bibleless believers. We've been in a months-long campaign to bless 20,000. We've got 2,000 to go. We need to do it by Sunday, February 11th. So at $5 a Bible, $100 sends 20, $500 sends 100. Would you pray about it and get involved, Abe?
You can give by calling 800-YES-WORD, 800-YES-WORD, or visit sendbiblesnow.org. That's sendbiblesnow.org.
Progressive elites in Hollywood, big tech, mainstream media, and higher academia are lying to our next generation. They want to convince our young people that America's biblical foundation is offensive, outdated, and must be overthrown. Your gift today will unleash AFA action to share the timeless truth of why protecting the biblical family is essential to the survival of the American Republic. You'll also get the free DVD and booklet set, Progressive Threat to the American Republic. Visit afaaction.net.
The Hamilton Quarter podcast and one-minute commentaries are available at afr.net. Back to the Hamilton Quarter on American Family Radio.
You know, one of the foundation stones of a free society is the free exchange of ideas. But in the woke world of the 21st century, there's some ideas that just, in the minds of some of the tech overlords, just ideas that aren't fit for public consumption, like God's Word. Alex McFarland here. We're talking with Claton Butcher of the Crosscurrent Digital. And brother, the more I'm listening to you, the more I'm just in my heart thanking God for you for working hard to enable persons like myself to be heard. And you're very gracious. Over the break, you were saying that you were going to carry some of my content on your platform. So thanks very much for all of that, and thanks for being with us on the Hamilton Corner right now.
Absolutely. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about and promote what biblical values essentially is what we are standing on, and what Amazon does not like.
Yeah, and what's wild about our times, I mean, look, I'm a capitalist. I love when people have great ideas and they succeed, and ultimately, even making products available to consumers. It's all great. I mean, it redounds to the betterment of the human condition. But we're to the point when you've got juggernauts like Amazon.com that is just ubiquitous around the world now. The 800-pound gorilla in the room can control the room, and really intellectually, ideologically, to a degree, that's what's happening, isn't it?
It really is. Yep, you're right on. So what happens when, with that, when Amazon decides not to carry a book on a certain topic? Amazon, what many people don't realize, even Christian and conservative publishers, 2/3 to 3/4 or even more of all book sales go through Amazon.
Yeah.
So it is a huge, it affects, when they decide not to carry something, it affects what is published, it affects what people will write about, it affects what agents, literary agents will consider, it affects what publishers will receive and publish, and so it can have a really chilling effect, not just on one book, but in a sense, an entire industry. And actually later, so not only did they censor our book, but later in 21, they removed an entire Christian publisher's account because of their biblical stance on homosexuality on a few books.
Yeah. And a lot of people don't realize this. And listen, I'm not going to go into the details right this minute, although I could. Bert Harper and I, we have a show on the American Family Radio Network, and my goodness, thank God for AFR, the American Family Radio Network, that courageously proclaims God's Word and truth. But Bert Harper and I have written 2 books based on the people that call into our radio show, and 100 Bible Questions and Answers, then Volume 2, 100 Bible Questions and Answers for Families. And we've actually got seriously 700 different Bible questions from actual radio listeners that could be, 7 more volumes. But the first volume, Claton, 2 of the questions that radio listeners had sent in, what does the Bible really say about homosexuality? I mean, what is the truth about what Scripture says about homosexuality? What about transgenderism? So we were working with a particular publisher that was getting their books in places like Barnes & Noble, the Choice Books kiosk, the revolving kiosk that's in a lot of stores like Walgreens and things like that. And the publisher was like, hey, if you would drop those 2 questions, and we said, look, we're going to do 100 questions from 100 radio listeners. They said, look, if you guys would, we'll get your book in more stores. Please just don't mention homosexuality or transgenderism, and you and Bert, you'll make an extra $15,000 that you guys can split. And I said, well, I'll call Bert Harper, but I already know the answer. The answer is going to be no. We're not going to, drop what God's Word says. And the publisher the publisher we were talking to at that time was kind of like, please, we'll sell way more books. So we didn't do it. And it probably made that book not as big a release as it would have been. But here's my point. The pressure of Amazon and the pressure of secular retailers is changing what Christian publishers will or won't publish. Am I right?
You are absolutely right, yes. And then the self-censorship happens as well, because authors, well, I can't write about that because there will be consequences,
a career killer
for my career. Exactly. And actually, there's another layer of this too. Our own distributor did not carry the next book by Ryan Anderson that we published through Black Hills Audiobooks, which was Tearing Us Apart, how abortion destroys everything it touches, essentially. And so even our own distributor said, no, we're not going to do that one. But it was so hard to find narrators, Christian narrators, that are willing to lose their entire income because they would not be given books in the future if their name was attached to these things. And so it is all over the place. And people, the normal everyday average Christian has no idea that these things are happening, and how important it is for us to vote with our dollars. And even if you're buying Christian content, buying Christian books, if you're getting it through Amazon, Barnes & Noble, whatever it may be, unless you're buying it directly from either us or the Christian publishers themselves, you're giving 75% of that away to Amazon.
Wow. So are you seeing traction with Crosscurrent Digital and, really creating open, unrestricted avenues for Christian content? Are you seeing traction, and there's a growing demographic that's pulling away from Amazon and spending their monies with Christians and conservatives who care about truth and freedom?
There is definitely a growing movement to do that, both in the Christian and conservative America First companies. And so, yes, we technically are still in beta, which means we're working on this. We're bootstrapping this entire thing, my wife and I. And it's not easy to go up again to build something on par with what Amazon has built over 15 years with hundreds of millions of dollars behind them. And so yes, we're seeing a little bit of traction. Obviously, we would like to have more. But we really haven't started marketing, because this has been a 3-year process that we're to get to this point. And this is really one of the very early interviews that we have ever done. And so we appreciate you being willing to have us on and let people know about us.
Well, glad to do it. And you know what? Listen, I was speaking at a major military base here in America, and I was talking to some guys that were very high-ranking officials in our military, Christians. A lot of people don't realize, folks, there are a lot of born-again believers in our armed forces. But they were talking about things like this, how the internet really has the power, as great and as powerful as it can be. I guess the people behind the scenes with the internet have the ability to censor viewpoints that are deemed unacceptable. And as we all know, in many quarters, Christianity and certainly the Word of God is viewed as inappropriate, unacceptable. They were talking about starting, alternative World Wide Webs, or an alternative World Wide Web for Christians. I know many ministries are starting their own platforms and networks. So I guess here's a question as time fleets away, Claton. George Barna, we've interviewed Barna. The Barna Research Group believes there are bare minimum this is the low number, 68 million born-again adults, but it's really probably more like 130 million. So we're talking at least a third of the adult population, and it's probably more than that, has a born-again relationship to Jesus Christ. What do you think it would take? Well, I mean, I think you and I both know what would happen if all of the Christian adults voted and shopped with their convictions, because voices and dollars have influence. But what do you think it's going to take for Christians to really understand that freedom is at stake and really the souls of people are at stake?
That is an excellent question. It is going to take Christians, just like you said, realizing that these things that are religious freedom, for one, but as you mentioned, the souls of people are on the line and being stolen, in a sense, by the companies that we go to every day. And so it is so important for people to vote with, not only at the voting booth, vote your values, and it's incredibly important to know what the platform of the party that you're voting for is. A friend of ours, Dr. Jim Garlow, talks about that a lot. And it's so important to know what the platform is, not only what the person that you're voting for is. And then again, like you mentioned, voting with dollars. It's going to take Christians deciding, you know what, I'm not going to buy at Starbucks. I'm not going to buy from Amazon. I'm not, even though it's
we don't spend money at Target.
So much easier, right? Yep, Target.
Yeah.
We've seen recently what can happen when Christians and conservatives do vote with their dollars. Target took a huge hit. Bud Light took a huge hit. Those different things. Public Square went public, had an IPO, and so there is so much that could happen and that could be changed if we vote both in the ballot box and with our wallets. But it is critically important that people know where people stand on these biblical values that are perceived as political, but are truly biblical.
Sure. So let's talk about happy things for a moment. You're a publisher. What are some of the books or products you've got that you're especially excited about? I was on your website, crosscurrentdigital.com. A lot of great looking content there. What releases are you especially enthused about?
Let's see. So we are working with in a couple different ways with Two Words Publishing, which is, again, our Christian audiobook publishing company. And these are separate entities. There's Two Words, there's Black Hills, there's Vision Audiobooks that my wife and I have, and then Crosscurrent is separate. But Robin Lee Hatcher is a hugely award-winning narrator. We have a new book coming out with her that comes out Tuesday, I believe. So that's exciting. So any romance readers out there, listeners, that will be on Crosscurrent as well as everywhere else. And then we love Colson Center. John Stone
Street is a friend and colleague of 20 years. And, of course, I knew Chuck Colson. And so anything that Colson Center is doing, we give a big thumbs up.
Yeah. And we published A Practical Guide to Culture, the audiobook for that, through Two Words Publishing. So that's always a great one, especially now. It's becoming more and more relevant as time goes on. And again, of course, you can find When Harry Became Sally, the audiobook on Crosscurrent. And so those things, We have older books. We have newer books coming. We've got agreements with most of the Christian publishers, or many of the Christian publishers.
Hey, we're out of time. I'm sorry. Thanks for listening, folks.
The
God
views
bless
and
you.
opinions expressed